Okay, in the last video we created these buttons that toggle open these field sets. We also developed some functionality to where we can change the CSS of our font. And before, we had been able to change the color when we hover over our color picker. In this video, we're going to add some functionality so that we can change which button is active. So, for example, if the font button's active, of course the font inputs are going to be displayed in the field set, but also we only want to be able to change the color on hovering over the color picker when our font is active, and we want to be able to click on the color picker to populate the color of our input for our font. So let's go to the code. So let's make our font button initially active. So let's give it a class of, call it active BT underscore BT. Okay, so let's copy that, go to the CSS, and down at the bottom, we'll give it a style. Paste it. Okay, let's give it a background of, how about red, F00, and color yellow. That would be # FF0. Okay, so let's save that. And nothing's working. Okay, let's figure this out. Okay, in the CSS, let's see. We styled our buttons. Okay, we got the ID of the button set, and any button within the button set, we're going to give it this style. That's too specific. Let's cut that and just give that style to the buttons. You save that. Now let's try this again. Okay. Now we have our button that is active. So let's go back to the JavaScript, and where we click our buttons, let's get the button that we're clicked on. Remember this keyword, and let's add that class active BT. Okay, but we also need to get the siblings. We want to remove the class of all the other buttons. So let's get the siblings and remove the same class active BT. So let's save that and try it out. So when I click this, see, now we got whichever button we click on becomes the active BT. So when we hover over the color picker, we change the color of our text. But when we activate other buttons, we do not want to change the color of the text. We want to change the color of whatever the button is active. So we need to create some other new functionality. So let's go to the JavaScript, and right where we are clicking the button, when we're hovering over the button, fine, that's right here. Okay, so we got declared the variable color, and we are changing the CSS of the ID creative clerk, but we only want to do that if the font button has the active class BT. So let's write if our condition is true, which will go in parentheses, but in curly brackets we want to get the element and set its CSS to the color. That is the color we're hovering over. So we only want to do that if the element with an ID of font button has the active class. So we need to write has class and active underscore BT. Okay, so let's save that. Now it's still going to work because the font button is active, but if we activate the text shadow button, then it's not working, and that's exactly what we want. So let's go back to the code and use that similar logic to set our font color input. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to copy all this. I need that curly brace. I'm going to copy all this, the function of where we hovered, and down below I'm going to paste it, and we need to make some changes. That needs to be clicked. Okay, same thing. Color is going to be the same thing. It's going to be the attribute that we made in our for loop. I don't know what happened to my active button. So I need to copy that. And so what I'm doing is going to see if that button is active, the font button is active, and then I'm going to get the font color, that input in our font field set, and set it to font color, and I'm going to set its value to the variable we have up here, color, the attribute that we created when we created the for loop. Okay, but we also need to set the background color of our input to our color. Okay, so let's save that. So when I click on a color in the color picker, I want the value and the background color of my input to become the color I picked on. But what if I click on one of the borders? We're going to have a problem there. So we need to get rid of these borders. So let's go to the CSS, find our selector for our color picker right here. So let's get rid of this, do the border collapse. Border collapse, and it's right here. Okay, and its value is going to be collapse. Let's also give the border width is 0. Okay, now let's save that and see if it works. Refresh, and you see our borders just collapsed, and that's going to be a lot better for us. So now we need to be able to set the CSS. So before we were changing our inputs and we were calling that function generate CSS, but we need to also go and create a Mouseleave event. So let's go back to the code, and so let's get the ID with color picker. And when we leave, Mouseleave is the event. And all we need to do is call that function that we created earlier, generate CSS. So in the curly braces, find that generate CSS. I'm going to copy that right here, paste it up here. Okay, let's save that and see what it looks like. Refresh. So we can change the color. When we leave, we should go back to whichever color was saved in our inputs. Okay, so now we can change our color of our text, our font size, and our font family. So let's move on. In the next video, let's start working on this code below, but just for the font. So then we're going to finish the font, and we're going to move on to the text shadow, the border, and the box shadow, and we're going to we're moving along. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.